All right, listen, I get it. I really do. I'm sure you guys are starting to lose trust in me more and more every time I say that we're finally done buying bikes, and then I end up on here just a month later with another one. But believe me, it's never part of the plan, all right? I always think I'm telling the truth that we're done buying bikes, but the issue is that I just can't stay off of Craigslist and Facebook. And sometimes I just find deals that are too good to pass up. And that is not only the case this time, but we actually might have found the best deal yet. The bike that I found this time has more features than the Rebel 1100, is only 2 model years old, has under 4,000 miles when I bought it, and although it typically retails for almost $7 grand, I found it for only $2,500. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the brand new 2022 CFMOTO 700 CLX. I mean, come on, people. Can you blame me? Really? Look at her. She's so freaking pretty, and for only $2,500 with all the features that she has is insane. Now, honestly, I never really had intentions of owning one of these bikes. I thought they were kind of interesting when I heard about them, but never had plans of buying one. But like I said, sometimes a deal comes along so good that you just gotta call it fate, and you gotta buy it, and that's what I'm calling this. I'm calling it fate, especially because I got that intro for this video first try, which is unheard of for me. So yeah, let's go ahead and call this fate, and I'm going to call this the CFMOTO 700 CLX. I'm going to be honest, I always thought it was CLX 700, but this would prove me wrong, and this is kind of up in the air. Who knows there, you know? CLX 700, 700 CLX, the world may never know. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with CFMOTO, I know lots of you might not be, because CFMOTO kind of just started making a name for themselves around 2022 when this bike came out. CFMOTO is actually a Chinese brand that, from my understanding, is either like owned by or has some of the same molds as or something like that KTM. And it's my understanding that when they came out in 2022, it kind of like shocked the motorcycle world, because most people think Chinese bike and they think that they just suck and they're unreliable and the fit and finish sucks, and you know, you just think Amazon bike. But this bike is kind of anything but that. We've put about, I think, 400 miles on this bike before this video, and I have been pleasantly surprised by how much this thing doesn't suck. That is not to say that it doesn't have its quirks though, which I'm already kind of realizing, so we'll talk about that in a second. First, I'll show you the couple of reasons why I got such a good deal on this bike and why they're really not that big of a deal, and then we'll hop on the bike, talk about it a little bit, and I'll go over kind of the quirks that I've found with it and the plans that we have for it as well. Okay, so like I said, these things retail for just under $7 grand, and typically secondhand, I want to say that they trade for around like $5 grand, maybe between $4,500 and $5,500. So of course, if I got it for $2,500, you guys are probably like, what is wrong with it? What was all messed up with it? You know, I've already rebuilt a wrecked Rebel, so you're probably assuming that it was something like that where it needed like $1,000 worth of work, but it didn't. So the previous owner had dropped it before, but not at speed, literally just toppled over in the parking lot. And the only damage that happened to it was this shift lever right here bent in some, but that was easy enough. I literally just put a bar over it and bent it back in place. And then the clutch lever was actually broken, and that wasn't a big concern of mine. I figured I'd get around to getting new levers for it whenever, but apparently it needs to have the ball on the end in order to pass Maryland State inspection. So I went ahead and spent $32 on these adjustable levers to replace them. They're foldable and adjustable for how far they sit out from the bars, and you can adjust how far they come out. So that's super nice. You might notice they're a little bit messed up here, and that's because they sent me the wrong ones. These were actually for the Sport model and not the Heritage, which is what this is. So I had to cut out out a big old chunk there so it would fit, and then they're sending me a new adapter for it, but I took the cutting wheel to it just so that it would fit properly, so that it would pass inspection, so we could get it tagged and titled and on the road. And then I didn't even notice this when we were looking at the bike. I noticed it about a week later, but the fender right here is broken. I would assume when it tipped over, this hit something, so that's broken, but not even a big deal. Like I said, I didn't notice it at first, and that is literally it. That is all that was wrong with the bike. Now granted, she was pretty dirty just from sitting outside all winter underneath a cover, so I had to give her a good scrub down, get her nice and shiny. So yeah, to say that we made out like bandits would be a vast understatement, and I am super stoked. All right, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, oh, I almost forgot. So I'm sure lots of you guys expected this video to be about an FTR, because I'm sure you know that at Bike Week I rode an FTR, or I guess 2 FTRs the entire time, and absolutely fell in love. And lots of you guys were expecting that I would end up buying one, and I do still kind of plan on getting one. But hear me out. Tell me that if you don't stand like 12 feet back from this thing and squint super hard, tell me that it's not just like a Wish.com version of an FTR. Am I right? I mean, come on. All right, let's take this thing for a rip while I tell you guys about it. And you might notice that typically I start out in like a nice like waterfront area, but this time we're in the back roads, and that's because that's where this thing freaking shines. So I'm gonna show it to you. What was that stutter? I'm gonna show it to you. Alright, so you can look at the dash and see that it's digital, which is pretty cool. Already got some fancy tech going on. Start her up. She sounds pretty good, right? You'll see the ABS flashing. That'll go away once we hit like 3 miles per hour, I think it is. But, you know, comes standard with ABS. You'll see over here, Eco and Sport mode. Yes, for only $2,500. I got a bike that has different riding modes, which is pretty cool. I'll explain that in a second. But it's super simple. You just hit Eco for Eco, and you'll see it change right there. Then you hit Sport for Sport, and you'll see it switch. And then you'll see up here, cruise control buttons, dude. Yes, this thing has cruise control. In addition to that, this thing has traction control, a slipper clutch, all of the goodies that you would expect out of like, I don't know, a $10,000, $11,000 bike comes in a bike that sells for only about $7 grand and that I found for $2,500. Craziness. Okay, let's get going, people. So, actually, let's rip her. Ooh, I'm sorry. I bet my helmet slapping clothes like that was pretty loud, so hopefully I like did something about that. But yeah, as you can see, she's a ripper. It's a 700 cc's. I think it's actually like 690 something. And given that it's a 700, I really expected it to be like the MT-07, which you guys know I've owned before. But I find that it's really not. I find that it's more in line with like a CBR 650 or something like that. Like I find that it really wants to wind out and like pull into higher revs, whereas the MT-07 I feel like is more like low range happy, you know, like you touch the throttle and it's super torquey. This has the torque, but I feel like it wants to pull into the higher RPMs like something like the CBR. You'll see that it has the gear indicator right there, and that actually is one of the first quirky things that I noticed about this bike, is the fact that sometimes the gear indicator isn't really true, and especially I guess it's kind of like a common thing that these bikes do, that in 6th gear, sometimes, especially over 70 miles per hour, it'll flash up and say that it thinks it's in 1st gear. And at first I was like, okay, that's not really an issue. I know what gear it's in, so I don't really care what it's showing. But somebody had a good point in the fact that it has cruise control, and cruise control can only be used, I think, in gears 4 and higher or something like that. So the issue with that is that if your gear indicator is messing up and reading the wrong thing, then it makes your cruise control stop working. And you can see, like, as you mash on it, it like lags a little bit, you know? It takes a second for the gear indicator to catch up. And not only that, but the ECU does something weird where like under a lot of throttle, it like hesitates for a second before it shifts to the next gear. But apparently there's like an ECU flash that'll handle that, and it also handles the fact that it's like a little bit herky-jerky in 2nd gear, which I've definitely noticed. It's not as bad as the Rebel 1100, and it's also kind of different. The Rebel 1100 is really aggressive with like on-off throttle in lower gears, but this is like, even if you hold the throttle steady in 2nd gear, it'll kind of like herk and jerk around almost like it's cutting fuel. Kind of weird, but sounds like it's like a common thing that an ECU fixes, or an ECU flash I should say. Now I think I already talked about kind of like all of the features that it has, but just to make sure that I covered all of my bases, I'm gonna kind of like run through them again. Oh, this is where we came for my my last meetup ride. But yeah, oh yeah, that's what I forgot. Self-canceling turn signals. Did you see that? How cool is that? That's another quirky thing though. Apparently it's a warranty thing where sometimes whatever sensor is responsible for the self-canceling turn signals gets a little bit wonky, and you'll see that sometimes it'll handle everything on its own. What's up, brother? And other times it won't. So apparently it's a warranty item, but I don't think I really care about it enough to get that handled. It is super nice though, because you know, I'm not used to self-canceling turn signals and I'm notorious for leaving mine on. So when it does handle it for me, it's super nice. And when it doesn't, then it's like, whatever, dude. So yeah, self-canceling turn signals, cruise control, 2 different rider modes, ABS, traction control, slipper clutch, USB charger underneath the seat. This thing has it all. And I actually really like the way that the riding modes work, which I think is going to be really good for Nina, which honestly, I didn't even realize how the ride modes worked when I bought it, but I knew that it had them, so I figured that it would be a good kind of like stepping stone for Nina if she wanted to use this to kind of experience more power over her Rebel 300. For my Rebel 1100, the way that the ride modes work is it really only changes throttle response. So like if I'm in rain mode, for example, and I chop the throttle, it's not gonna really do much because it really limits the throttle response. But if I open it up all the way, if I give it 100% throttle, it's still going to accelerate at exactly the same rate as it would in sport mode. Whereas this, I'm not sure how it does it, but the different ride modes between eco and sport, it actually limits the power. So eco mode is only, I think, 38 horsepower and sport mode is 74. So it literally throttles back the amount of power that it will give the bike. And it's pretty crazy too. As soon as we're done these twisties, I'll show you. But like you can actually hear a difference in the motor when you switch between the different modes. And not only that, but with the Rebel, you can only change the ride modes if you're off the throttle. Like the throttle has to be 100% closed in order to change the modes. But with this bike, you can change it as you're on the throttle. So you can literally feel the throttle get more power if you accidentally go from eco to sport while you're on it. Okay, so ready? We'll switch to eco mode and we'll see if you guys can tell. I'm gonna get on the throttle and then I'll switch to sport mode as I'm on the throttle. Ready? Could you hear that? Oh, I'm almost redlining. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but you can literally hear the engine characteristic change as you hit it. Here, I'm gonna pull into this church parking lot and do some slower speed stuff to see if you can hear it. We'll start in second gear at 10, and I'll open it up in eco and then sport. Ready? So eco. There was that little bit of lag that I was talking about, but that was eco, and then I'll switch it to sport and we'll do the same thing and we'll see how much you guys can notice a difference. Ready? I really hope it's showing through. It's pretty crazy, but it makes me realize that this honestly would be the perfect next bike for Nina to kind of get like a feel for what more power feels like, because in eco mode that would essentially put the power right at the midway point between a Rebel 300 and a Rebel 500, but then in sport mode it would put it like, you know, pretty much like Z650, CBR 650 territory. Like, check out how quick they are. Bad, dude. And yeah, I guess that's kind of a good lead in to how I was saying that we'd also talk about the plans that I have for this bike. Where am I? Which, oh, left. And the main plan is that this, I think if Nina wants to, is going to be kind of, oh, sorry, that was the horn. This is going to be kind of like the lead in to Nina finding out what more power is like, kind of getting her off of the 300. And, you know, she just did her day trip ride for the first time, her first solo day trip, which was freaking awesome, and it's crushing it on YouTube right now. Shout out to her. Go check out that video. And obviously if she's doing rides like that, she needs more power. She needs something more capable than the 300. Why would this not be the next step when it has all of the technology that she could need, plus ride modes, all that kind of good stuff? And then the other plan is really, I just want to kind of like modify this thing myself and see what it's made of, you know? Like, Chinese bikes have a bad rap, but do Chinese bikes actually suck? Like, let's find out. Let's make this thing as badass as possible. But past that, I'm not really sure. Leave some comments. Let us know what you guys want to see done with this. I said us, dude. I'm already talking as if it's like mine and her bike, not just mine. I don't know. I'm super excited because, dude, it's so flickable. It's at home in the twisties, but like it has cruise control, so it can handle the highway just fine. Oh, and it's really cool because this would probably be a good moto camping bike, even though it's not designed for that. It has like semi-knobby tires, so obviously it would be much better for that than Nina's Rebel. So again, dude, the next time that we go moto camping and try to get our redemption for that, it would be perfect. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this video. I kind of just wanted to give you an introduction. Oh, that's another weird thing. So neutral, it just found neutral pretty easily there, but neutral is kind of hard to find on this because you kind of like clunk into the other gears, but then neutral is like a whisper in between first and second. But yeah, overall this thing is an absolute ripper, and I know that I try and justify my purchases a lot, but honestly, for $2,500 there is no way that I could turn this down, or that anybody in their right mind should turn it down. So leave a comment, let me know your thoughts on the bike, let me know what you want to see done to it. Shout out to the Patreon members for making all of this possible. Could not be doing this without you. To win the Polaroids, get behind the scenes access to videos, early access, behind the scenes, blah blah blah. They literally knew about this bike 3 weeks ago. Check out patreon.com/lifeofbirch. I will catch y'all on the next one. Love you guys. Thank you for making all of my dreams possible. Peace.
Oh, so basic. Hope you play this. Damn, I prayed it. Nice song and I became this. Old souls fake it. Paid those placements. Fuck shit. And I'm still waiting on the brighter days. Been a minute, been rough many times more. And I'm kicking rocks to a sky of gray. Praying hard, talk to me before I'm done for.